everybody. Welcome to Curry and Mitchell, from Watts to Brooklyn, and dare I say all points in between and beyond. I'm Sheldon Curry here along with my good friend James Mitchell. We're going to discuss a number of topics throughout the sports world, maybe some politics and anything else that fits our fancy, as we like to say from time to time. So thanks for joining us. We believe you'll enjoy the show. What's up, good brother? What's up?
Everything's good. Everything's good. Good to be back with you after a little hiatus over the holiday. Yeah, man. Got a lot to talk about. There's been a lot of interesting sports stories over the weekend. A lot of good games, college, pro, all kind of things going on. Just to get started, man, I'm going to jump into this USC since it happened on Friday. USC and Utah was a big game because it had a lot of ramifications for the Final Four in the playoffs. And with USC getting beat again by Utah. Utah seems to have their number. And there's some controversy in the beginning of the game before the quarterback at USC, Williams, got hurt. USC was up by 14, I believe, at the time. And they had a 4th down and 8 on their side of the 50, around their 40-yard line, and decided to go for it rather than punt the ball away. And they didn't make it. As a consequence, kind of flipped the game because they had a lot of momentum going at that point. And the rest is history, as they say. Williams got hurt. They couldn't stop anybody in Utah, and Utah beat them up pretty good, But that had the ramification of then allowing Ohio State to get back into the picture, I think. Had USC won that game, and it would have been problematic for them. And it would have been a toss-up of what they're going to do between TCU and Ohio State at that point. TCU wound up losing on Saturday, which is a whole other story. It's a game that they probably could have won had they, in my opinion, at any rate, had a little better play calling at the end. But it is what it is,
Yeah,
so.
typical. Yeah, I mean, I think your point's right on with SC. They obviously, a win, they would have been in. And, having that poor second half, and you're right, Utah in the last handful of years seems to have USC's, they give them the business. They just don't seem to be able to handle Utah. And I know in this game, the parts that I watched, Utah just seemed to be a lot more physical.
Right.
And I think, though SC is, a traditional power, and even though they were down, I think they were 4-8 last year before Lincoln Riley took over.
Sure.
They probably don't have some of the physical prowess or the athletes with the physical prowess that they used to have. So I guess it's going to take some time. But let's look at, we ended up with Georgia, Michigan, TCU, and Ohio State in the going to be in the national championship semifinals.
Right.
And it wasn't that controversial, but some people felt like Alabama should have got the 4th bid. What do you think?
Well, I don't think so. I think that TCU earned it. Like I said, they lost one game, and it's a game that they should have won, I thought, and could have won. They lost like an overtime, by 3 points, and I think given the season that they had, and Alabama did have 2 losses, and as we talked earlier, and you were mentioning how Alabama normally would play a little stronger schedule, and they didn't. They didn't play Georgia this year. You pointed out, and losing to Tennessee and who else beat them?
LSU.
LSU. Kind of put the nail on the coffin for them to have 2 losses. I don't see that they could have legitimately leapfrogged over TCU. So I'm comfortable with the 4 teams that they have in there.
Yeah, I am too, because there's no doubt that the SEC is the preeminent college football conference, and anytime there's 2 1-loss teams or 2 undefeated teams from different conferences, more times than not the SEC is going to get the benefit of the doubt and get the bid. But in the case between Alabama and TCU, we can say the same thing, Alabama and Ohio State, is that, they had 1 more loss. And though their 2 losses were by combined, 5-6 points, I know they lost by 3 to Tennessee, and I think they lost by 1 or 2 to LSU, both, quality teams.
Right.
But I think on the other side of it, if I recall, their best two wins this year were against Mississippi State. Both, solid teams, 8-9 win teams in the SEC, but nothing earth shattering. And I think when you look at TCU, as we talked off the air, though the Big 12 is not in SEC's league, but it is a Power 5. The committee wants to reward the teams that do well in their conferences too. And they, TCU had a 3-point loss to a 10-3 Kansas State team, a team they beat earlier in the season, and they had another handful of wins over teams who had winning records in that conference. So it made sense. And it's funny because Ohio State is not in the discussion, actually, relative to Alabama, and Ohio State actually was the fourth ranked team. But I think because Ohio State's such a traditional power and that we're used to seeing them in the national championship semifinals, so people figure, one loss, it was to an undefeated Michigan. So I think people can deal with Ohio State being picked over a 2-loss Alabama. But it was TCU that doesn't have the pedigree. There you go.
Right.
Yeah.
Because of the two, I think Ohio State has been playing the worst football lately. They haven't been very consistent at all. The offense has been sputtering, and the defense has been kind of shaky all the time. It seems. They don't have that one standout player that they've had in the past few years. There's some dominant guy like a Chase or one of the Bosa brothers or somebody like that. They don't have that outstanding one, like alpha person on defense that can kind of solidify their defense for them this year. So they've been kind of shaky. And I don't know what they're going to do against Georgia. I think they're going to have their hands full, to say the least.
Georgia ran the table.
Yeah, they're tough. They're tough.
They are, and they're physical, and they play very good defense. And
they do. That's the thing. The defense is off the chart. They really did. And the offense has been clicking like crazy. That quarterback had a good year. He
did. It's going to be interesting if he gets a shot at the next level because no one, he was a walk-on, so no one is giving him any kind of win to do anything. But, you never know. You never know.
Yeah. I'm sure he'll get a shot.
Yeah. He definitely will get a shot.
Yeah, he definitely will get a shot.
I think that's on the table. Who do you think is going to win the Heisman? It'll be announced next week. Or this coming Saturday. I'm sorry, coming Saturday.
I think the Williams from USC.
Yeah, I do too.
I think he put together. He's from a high-profile school, and the kid from Carolina fell off drastically last couple of games, and he had an outstanding year. And Stroud he had two kind of mediocre games for him. The last two games that Ohio State played, and like you said, because Alabama had the two losses, and even though I think probably the best quarterback out of all of them, in my opinion, other than a running standpoint, would be the young man Bryce Young. I think he's the more mature of the four, put it that way. I think he makes better decisions, and he's very accurate, and I just like him a lot. It's not taking anything away from Stroud and Williams, because they're both outstanding athletes, and I think they'll both do well at the next level. A good shot.
Yeah, it was really kind of a weird finish to a so-called Heisman season because I don't recall in recent memory the number of quality or top candidates, dark horse or otherwise, that when you looked at the last 4 or 5 weeks of the season, there was a mixture of injuries, a mediocre performance or two. You look at Hendon Hooper tore his knee up, even though it was real late in the season, so it really shouldn't hurt his Heisman bid. But he
missed a couple of games.
And they got routed by South Carolina, which doesn't help. Like say Bryce Young, he earlier in the year actually missed a couple of games, and he was kind of beat up. Stroud, played a couple of average games. The running back Corum for Michigan missed most of the last 2 games. And like you say, the dark horse May in North Carolina that you had been talking about in the past, he did have a couple of poor at least I didn't see the games, but statistically he didn't seem to play as well as he had been playing. So it's just like, it's like one after the other, and the only one seemed to be Caleb Williams. And he played a pretty good game against Utah. It's just that it fell apart for them in the second half. So I I think given that he was on an 11-2 team, a Power 5 team, he has over-the-top stats, I think he's going to win it.
Right. Plus he got hurt in the last game, too.
Right.
So,
and he toughed it out. He toughed it out.
He did. Oh, he
toughed
certainly
it
did.
out.
He certainly did. He's quite a player.
Yeah.
He's something.
And he got another year. He's not eligible for the draft for another year, I believe.
Right. Okay.
So, if I'm not mistaken, I think he's a true sophomore, if I'm not mistaken.
I think he is. Yeah. Well, I don't know. Well.
Yeah. I think he was a freshman at Oklahoma last year.
Right.
And then he went in the transfer portal.
Oh, that's right.
And you don't have to sit out anymore.
Okay.
They got rid of that, which I applaud.
Mm-hmm.
And so I believe if I'm right, he was a true freshman last year. Then he's a true sophomore.
I think you're right. He was.
So he won't be eligible for the NFL draft until after the 2023 college football season. If he decides to come out early.
Right.
So but it should be a pretty good, interesting Final Four. We got TCU playing against Michigan, and then Georgia playing Ohio State. I would think that Georgia and Ohio State would be the marquee game, what they call the late game of that. What is it, New Year's Eve?
Right.
And then, I don't know, 8, 10, 12 days later, the championship game will be played. So we'll see what happens. Hey, let's flip to Week 13 in NFL and do a recap. There was a lot of storylines. One of the biggest ones, of course, is Lamar Jackson of Baltimore got hurt in the first quarter yesterday.
Right.
And their 10-9 squeaker over Denver. Tyler Huntley came off the bench and, afforded himself quite admirably and had a 91-yard touchdown drive at the end of the game to seal the deal.
Absolutely.
What you've heard anything more about Lamar? I heard Harbaugh had mentioned his injury is not serious. At least they don't believe it is. That he might be out days or weeks.
They're still saying the same thing. They had an MRI, and they're saying that it's week to week at worst. So hopefully he'll be all right. Yeah.
So
it's a shame that.
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say it's a shame that happened to him, but it's interesting too. They always talk about a quarterback like him, the propensity to get hurt, and he got hurt in the pocket, right? He wasn't on the running play. It's one of those things when it happens.
Yeah, we've talked about, at least anecdotally, that a number of quarterbacks get hurt in the pocket, but that's not the narrative. I heard the other day that someone did I don't know who that someone or that entity was that did some type of analysis over the last few years, and it showed that more quarterbacks do get hurt in the pocket, even though they said it wasn't materially different. But that's even different than what people think.
That's true. That's true.
And Garappolo broke his foot yesterday, and he was being sacked.
I know. Man, I feel bad for that guy.
Yeah.
He can't seem to stop getting hurt, man. Yeah.
And everything shaped up perfectly for him this year because he went from the wilderness. And then when Trey Lance got hurt for the season, and he inherited his spot back, and they were playing well, and now the defensive players are getting healthy, and a lot of people believe they could be the best team in football. We'll see.
Yeah, but the defense has been outstanding, the best in the league, I think, rated right now.
Yeah. So that'd be a good segue. You had mentioned to me earlier that Baker Mayfield was released by the Carolina Panthers.
Right, he's waived at any rate. He's waived, and he becomes a free agent if nobody claims him by tomorrow at 4 o'clock, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
So there's some scuttlebutt that the Niners might pick him up. What do you think about that?
It's a possibility because he has a little more experience than the guy they played. He was the last man taken in the draft last year, I think. He acquitted himself quite well. He could play like that. They won't need Baker Mayfield. But Baker Mayfield he hasn't done anything to show anybody that he would be an answer or an upgrade necessarily. I mean, you get released by the Panthers, man. That's not saying much for you, in my opinion, anyway.
Yeah, well, what it tells you is that by him being 1-5 as a starter, they probably looked at it and say, look, he's not going to be our quarterback of the future.
Right. Absolutely.
And though they may not have the quarterback of future on their roster, but start cutting bait. And I figure we'll get rid of him. We'll go the rest of the season with Darnold or PJ Walker.
Yeah, they're going with Donald. PJ's going to be the backup.
And just go from there and just
right,
not have. Right. And there probably is also a last gasp for Darnold too.
Oh,
and
yeah,
probably,
I think so.
And of course, that's in your neck of the woods, so you probably have heard more. But just logically, from a distance, it seems that why keep a veteran quarterback like Mayfield, who arguably, at least career-wise, is as good, if not a little better than Darnold, even though he didn't show it in Carolina. Right. Why have Darnold looking over his shoulder the last 4 or 5 games? And if Darnold plays well, who knows? They might give him a shot one more year, and if not, so. It made sense. It's going to be interesting, though, if Frisco picks up Mayfield, because I don't think a lot of him, but I think Frisco might be looking at that 1 year in Cleveland in 2019 when they won 11-5.
Right.
I think it was 20. It was either 2019 or 2020, one of those 2 years.
Right.
And they won the playoff game against Pittsburgh and lost to KC in I believe, the semis. And they might be looking at it like that, like, okay, good defense, good running game. We won't ask him to do too much. And he has experience.
I think that's the biggest thing.
Yeah, and more than the guy who I guess named Brock Purdy, who was a rookie from Iowa State.
Right.
So it's going to be stay tuned on this one.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if they picked him up.
I wouldn't be surprised either. But they're going to have to do something else because it seems, I don't know what they can do, let me say, but it would be really stretching it to go into the playoffs with Mayfield and Purdy.
True.
But again, I don't know. Cause
what can they do though? Yeah, at this stage of the game.
Yeah, that's true. Because you can't trade for anybody. It has to be somebody that's not on the roster. I did hear they signed Josh Johnson off of Denver's practice squad to back up.
It is.
So,
and he's a guy who has had some success playing. When he's got an opportunity, he doesn't seem to get much of an opportunity too often. So who knows?
And what's interesting about that, as we just mentioned about Mayfield, what if Josh Johnson got a shot with that team?
That's what I'm saying.
He's a veteran.
He's played well in spots when he's had an opportunity. Played well with the Jets a little bit and other spots. But it's going to be interesting if he gets a real opportunity to play.
Yeah. But everybody seems to indicate that Frisco has a Super Bowl ready team, so they could do some big things. You think about, I know it ain't going to happen because he's been out all year. You think about if somebody like Cam Newton had played a little bit earlier in this year and was available, you wonder what that might look like.
That's true. Yeah.
But, and then you look at, they can't get him, of course, unless he was released. Jameis Winston, if he was available. Can you imagine Winston with that team?
Oh, man, yeah, I could.
So it just shows you, man, some of this is just, luck of the draw,
That's true. That is so true.
So we will see what happens. No particular order, but since I went to Jameis, New Orleans and Tampa Bay play tonight in Monday Night Football. Tampa Bay is two games in the loss column ahead of Carolina and Atlanta, but only a full game ahead of Atlanta. What's your thought?
Well, it depends on, I think, on the Buccaneers defense. You know that the Saints always play them well.
Right.
And I think the Saints have a good defense still. They've been playing pretty well. If the Buccaneers defense can return to somewhat a similar performance they gave a year or so ago, I would ride with the Buccaneers in that one over. I'd rather have a little more faith in the old Tom Brady than I do in Andy Dalton. So I think it's gonna be a close game, but because Buccaneers haven't been scoring many points.
All year.
Yeah, all year they haven't scored much at all. So it's gonna be a defensive struggle the way I look at it. And like I said, I think the Bucs might come out ahead in that one.
Yeah.
I could be wrong, of course, but we'll see.
Yeah. The talented offensive lineman, the tackle Tristan Wirfs, got hurt in the last game against Cleveland.
Is that right?
And so he's out. And so that's going to
okay.
be another guy off of their offensive line. So just wonder about their ability to protect Brady as well as to run the ball.
Right, that's not going to help him at all.
So,
So they might swing the pendulum the other way. It might be enough, you know.
Yeah, you never know. But you're right. Dalton is so inconsistent, and he makes mistakes at the wrong time. So, I would agree if I had to pick a quarterback in this matchup, it clearly would be Brady.
Right. And just to backtrack a little bit, we talked about San Francisco earlier, that win against Miami yesterday. Miami played without two of their starting offensive linemen.
Yes,
and,
yes.
That made a big difference in the outcome of that game, I believe, because Tua was being harassed unmercifully.
Yeah, and I heard Waddle got hurt in that game too, one of the wide receivers. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so... Yeah, it's interesting. Injuries play a big part of it, especially this time of year. Everybody has somebody.
No, they do, man. They do. Yeah. That's part of the NFL.
That's right.
What do you think of KC and Cincinnati yesterday?
Man, Cincinnati just had their number. I heard Rick Ryan on Keyshawn's show this morning, and he was talking about the defense. How this guy Spagnuolo just plays too much man-to-man defense, and you can't do that against a team like Cincinnati. When you got Higgins,
Boyd, Chase.
I mean, come on, you playing man-to-man like you got Deion Sanders and some other
Darrell Reeves or something.
Darrell Reeves, other guys back there playing one-on-one. Yeah, he said you can't do that. That's what's killing him. So he plays too much man, and it's obvious, man. This guy they beat you one-on-one. I don't know what the answer is, but they got three guys that are superlative receivers out there at all times. But Cincinnati just seems to have their number. And Cincinnati's defense is awesome. And they don't get enough play. And, enough recognition. They try to make it sound like it's all Joe Burrow, who's playing well the last few games. But their defense is outstanding. And Kansas City just can't seem to stop anybody when they need to. And then there's always something that goes wrong. The turnover with Kelsey was a turning point in the game because Kansas City they're probably going to score again. Because nobody was they weren't stopping each other really, and I think Mahomes was probably going to put some more points on the board if he had dropped that pass or got it stripped. But that's just the way it goes, man. It seems to happen. They haven't beaten Cincinnati since Burrow's been there. Nobody's making a big deal out of that, saying
I think the people in that county, I think they beat him his rookie year, if I'm not mistaken. But the last three times they haven't beaten him. But I mean, it's big for Cincinnati. I don't know how big it is for Kansas City because I think it just depends on what's going on in the games. If you believe that, first of all, I heard someone say that Cincinnati doesn't fear Kansas City. Well, one of the things that I've always thrown that to the wayside in the pros, nobody should be fearing anybody anyway.
Exactly.
So I've never thought that meant a lot. But that being said, I think what you see, particularly the last two games in the AFC Championship game in the second half, and you said there was one turnover yesterday. Kelsey made it. And they're close enough, particularly when you're playing in Cincinnati, that could do it. Now, last year, Kansas City made multiple turnovers in the second half.
Right.
So, I think, knowing what I think I know of Kansas City and their pedigree, I think they can see that if they play, cleaner game, but they're going to have to get something out of that defense, man.
Oh, absolutely.
That's the thing. They give Spagnuolo all his credit, but there's just too many games where.
That's true.
So.
And they played without Juju Smith-Schuster primarily. He made an appearance in the game.
Oh, okay.
He hadn't really recovered from that concussion fully, so he didn't play a full game either. So that's a big weapon that wasn't out there for Mahomes. He's been playing very well this year. Yeah.
But I think they're going to see them again. It's a good chance. And the number one seed in the fight for the number one seed in the AFC is going to be something because Buffalo now has the tiebreaker over KC, and Cincinnati, even though right now they're in the 5 spot because they have right now they presently lose the tiebreaker to the Ravens. But if Cincinnati continues to win, they play Buffalo before the season's out.
Right.
And if they run the table, I know it's a big if, but if they run the table and KC loses one more game, Cincinnati would more likely than not have the number one seed because they would have beaten both Kansas City and Buffalo head up.
Right, that's right.
So,
that's a big win.
Yeah.
Big win.
Though I don't think they're going to run the table, frankly. But
I don't think so either. Anything's possible. But I'll tell you, man, everybody talk about Jamar Chase, and he's outstanding. But, man, this guy Higgins, man, he impresses me more and more I see him play.
Yeah, all three of them are really good.
Yeah, they are. They really are. They really are.
I mean, you think about Boyd is considered the third of the three. Think of it if Lamar Jackson had a Boyd.
Oh, man. Isn't that the truth?
Tyler Boyd, yeah.
I'm so tired of watching the Ravens play with nobody out there. You know, it's just it's maddening that they do nothing to address that year after year after year. I mean, it's just ridiculous. I don't know what they're thinking about. I have no idea. It's just a waste of talent. It reminds me of when the Ravens had that great defense when Ed Reed and those old guys were young, and they had a 3-4 year stretch. If they had any kind of offense, they probably would have won 4 Super Bowls. You know?
Right.
Yeah, man. It's just maddening to watch them, man. They have nothing on offense, really.
You
think? Whatsoever.
Speaking of the Ravens, do you think Lamar's going to rush back? I mean, he's such a competitor. They say he loves his teammates.
Yeah, I'm just gonna say, given his, it's his demeanor. I think that if he can walk, he's gonna play. Probably, I don't know how wise that is, but he'll probably be out there if he can play at all. I think so. Cause I don't know what to say about the Ravens. They've had a really strange year, but basically they're winning with. I don't know how they're doing it. Really, their offense, everybody's banged up or no talent, not very good talent. They seem to find a way to win.
Well, I think the reality is when and it's like so many other things. When you step back, I don't mean you step up, when you analyze a team, sometimes whether you root for a team or you follow them a little closer than other teams, we tend to see all the warts more than somebody else. Anybody else, we look, they're 8-4, they beating this team, they beating that team. But actually, the problem with the Ravens, largely has been the failure to close out these games.
True.
Now, yesterday they turned one around, but that's they I believe they're the only team in the NFL. If you go back 7 or 8 games, they're the only team that had double-digit leads in the second half of every game. Then I think because against Jacksonville, they had a 9-point lead in the fourth quarter, so then it became the only team in the league with a 9-point lead or greater in every game. And yesterday they didn't get there, but by going ahead late in the fourth and then winning, they're the only team in the league that's had a fourth quarter lead in all 12 games or whatever the number is. The point is, as much as we say, and they really don't help Lamar offensively, but they're a really good team, man.
Oh, they are. They're excellent.
They are a really good team. They just,
It's just that if they had one or two more weapons, they would be outstanding.
I agree.
They'd be like the Eagles. They'd be like the Eagles.
I agree.
Maybe they had an A.J. Brown, I mean, come on. So anybody like that, but they go year after year, and they don't do anything to address the wide receiver position. And to their credit, they've had some good running backs who unfortunately have been getting hurt the last few years.
Yeah, they've been beat up in the running back.
The wide receiver department is the thing that just drives me crazy. They don't seem to care about doing anything about it, and I don't understand it.
And Bateman's out for the year, so that's...
Yeah, and Bateman, not to knock him, but, you don't know what you had with him.
No, I agree. I'm only saying that because he was a first-round pick in the 2021 draft. That's all I'm saying is that this was supposed to be the year that, we were supposed to see, what his trajectory was going to be. But he opened the season hurt, missed the first handful of games, then he played 2 or 3, and then he got hurt again. And so I think he had that one game where I think he had like a 70, 75-yard touchdown pass from Lamar. But and I've seen a couple of little excerpts about him from people in the know. One was a former NFL wide receiver, but I can't think of his name. And they said they believe Bateman has a chance to be a good one. Now maybe not Chase or Justin Jefferson good, but he has he has the ability, the size, the speed to be a real good NFL wide receiver. So
I hope so. His sake alone, his career and whatnot, as well as for the Ravens. Yeah.
But back to your pet peeve though, but they play calling, man. I heard a little of the game, part of the I don't know. I guess it was the fourth quarter where they tried a halfback option, and I think it was Prochet threw interception into the end zone.
Right.
And I think Rod Whitson, who was an analyst on their home broadcast, had said he didn't know what he was seeing. But I always blame those plays on the coaching staff because a running back is not trained largely. They get it and they generally will throw it.
They're gonna throw it. Yeah.
If they see, and here's what made it so. It was bad enough to call the play, but it was horrible that they called it because at the time of the interception, I don't know, it was 10, 11 minutes left in the game. They're down 9-3. They're in field goal range, and I believe it was first or second down. They had been moving the ball.
Exactly.
So you would think worst case scenario, if we stall running a regular offense, Tucker gets it to 9-6, and now you just one decent possession from at minimum tying the game.
There you go.
And when you threw the interception, you knew it put them in a situation they were going to have to score a touchdown, which they hadn't done the whole game.
Right.
So it just seemed really horrible. But Huntley was able to pull it off at the end. But man, the decisions these teams are making.
I know.
And I'm beginning to wonder about Harbaugh, and I've typically liked him, but you remember last year all those going for twos, he kept missing. It's like, what's going on with Baltimore? It's like,
I know.
So I don't know. And then since I'm on that rant. This is not the same as some of the other ones, but the Bear Packer game.
Right.
When Green Bay scored its final touchdown, they go up 7. And they go for 2, and they make it, and they go up 9. Now, we know why they did it. The idea was, well, if Chicago scores, now and they go for 2, they still lose. They're going to lose the game. But here's why that doesn't make sense. Think about this. If you're already up 7, why not kick the extra point, go up 8, and the best Chicago can do is tie the game with you got to score a touchdown. And you got to get a 2-point conversion. Because now if Chicago goes down and gets the 2-point conversion for the win, you lose. The risk reward, all the possible scenarios, I don't know what the percentages are, but I was like, wow.
If the worst you can come up with is a tie,
Exactly. That was what I'm saying. You would come. The worst that can happen to us is we tie.
Because if you don't, like you said, they can lose the game. They don't make the 2. I don't know.
And all the pressure would be on Chicago. TD, and we needed 2 just to tie.
Exactly.
I'm thinking you missed that 2-point conversion, and Chicago decided. And I know what Green Bay was probably thinking. Teams with that record, even though Green Bay can't say nothing, they got pretty much the same record going into the game. But still, I don't know what's going on with what has happened, man. It's like they flip logic upside down.
Yeah, it seems to. And then talking about the Bears and the Packers, I don't know why the Bears are still playing Justin Fields. I mean, that goes beyond my comprehension. This, he has an injury to his shoulder, and you still running him out there. What, 3-10 now? I mean, come on. That doesn't make any sense to me at all. As valuable as he is, and looks like he's going to be their guy going forward, why would you risk him out there? And he's running the ball all the time and stuff. I don't know. I just wouldn't play him.
Well, it's interesting. I disagree a little bit because he's a young quarterback, and unless he was playing with an injury that he could make a lot worse and jeopardize next season or his future, I think the more reps he takes, the better it is for him, particularly on a team that's so bad. You can really work on some things. And though I didn't see the game yesterday, I looked and I saw the box score, and he had a heck of a passing game yesterday.
Oh, he did.
He was 20 of 25 for 254, and both interceptions really weren't. One was a Hail Mary at the end of the game, and I believe, and another one was, they said the receiver messed up. And I know that it was true because the QBR was 90. Now, QBR deals with not just stats, it deals with, distance, time, circumstance. The key parts of the game. And he had he might have had the highest QBR in the NFL yesterday. I didn't check everybody else's because the highest is 100. And that's different than the quarterback rating that the highest 158. That's based on 4 categories. And so when I saw that, I said, okay. So he must have been passing his butt off yesterday, man.
He's a heck of a player.
And he only ran 6 times, none in I think 1 or none in the second half. So I think that footprint might be something they can follow the rest of the season and reduce his being hurt. He was swinging that ball yesterday.
Oh, his talent's off the chart. I have no question about his ability to play.
Yeah, and it looked like he's kind of turned that corner now. So that's why I would play him just so he can get more reps. So when he comes in the next year.
Right. The experience won't hurt him. That's for sure.
Yeah, because remember last year he was on that pathetic, and the first part of this year they changed their offense a little bit.
They start playing to his strengths more.
Yeah, they start playing to his strengths more, and so I just think then they picked up Claypool, and I just think it would be important if he can begin to, for those who, because I'm pretty sure Claypool will probably be there next year. With tight end Komet, who seems to be one of his favorite targets. It'd be good to just build up a collective camaraderie with some of these guys in these last 4 games.
Sense.
So
that makes sense.
as long as they ain't putting him in harm's way. So it'd be interesting to see.
Yeah. Well, I just feel like he's an arm every time he steps.
Well, no, he is. I mean, that's that I agree with you. That I agree with you. What do you think of Dallas last night?
Oh man, Dallas! I'll tell you, this makes me look forward to the Christmas Eve more and more. That's be a hell of a game, Dallas and Philly.
Yeah.
Dallas was rolling, man. Given that they were playing, an inferior team, but the game was close for 3 quarters. Going into the third quarter, Indianapolis was holding up pretty well, but Dallas is just awesome. They have so many weapons, Man, they played a hell of a game last night. And Dak is looking great, man. He's playing really good ball. I'm really pleased with them. I can say they did it all. Though they had a significant injury. I don't know how bad he's hurt, but their cornerback Brown was hurt.
Yeah, he tore his Achilles.
Oh Lord. Okay,
yeah, so
that's not good. Yeah, that's not gonna help them any.
Yeah, so they had lost Jordan Lewis earlier in the year, and now they've lost Anthony Brown. They were the second and third best corners. So that's gonna hurt them.
It is.
Yeah.
Although they had a young fellow last night, I can't remember his name now. Bland.
Yeah, he had the 2 picks.
Yeah, he played very well, so maybe he can step in somewhere. I don't know if he played corner.
Yeah, I think he was a 5th round pick. I think he was a rookie.
They said they've been raving about him, though, his abilities, and he got a chance to show it last night. Yeah, so maybe he can take up some of the slack from those injuries. Yeah, it's going to be interesting, though. But that collision between the Eagles and the Cowboys looks like it's going to be, really monumental.
Yeah, it'll be a good game. It'll take on more if Dallas has a chance to win the division, because right now Philly has a 2-game lead.
I know. Philly looks awesome, man. Goodness gracious.
Yeah, I mean, goodness.
They're ridiculous.
They mistreated Tennessee, a same team that took Kansas City to the hill. Just last week held Cincinnati to 20 points.
That's right.
And Jalen just went off.
Oh, he's awesome. He is awesome. That's my man. I really like him.
380 yards passing, 3 TDs, 4 total, including the Russian TD.
Right.
And if they hadn't called out the dogs, he'd have threw for 500 yards, because most of his 380 was through 3 quarters.
Right. Yeah, he's awesome. They have an heck of a year. And then A.J. Brown, man, with the ball placement, he's throwing some great passes. But A.J. Brown, you saw the catch he made in the end zone.
Yeah, he took the ball away from the...
The ball actually hit the corner, hit the defensive player right on the shoulder. He called it off the shoulder. Yeah. That was just too much. I was like, goodness gracious. These guys are something, man. Yeah, they're playing very well.
But it's back to your point about Lamar. You see what a difference A.J. Brown's making.
Exactly.
There, and then, of course, guys who are with these other teams that they've had, Burrows with the Higgins, Boyd, Chase, Cousins with Jefferson, it's...
Exactly.
It's just...
Year after year, Baltimore doesn't seem to address it in any serious way. I don't know. Even when the kid Brown left to go to the Cardinals, one of his complaints was that he didn't like the way they used him. The offense isn't geared towards using wide receivers. Anyway, we shall see.
Yeah, we shall see. We shall see. So any predictions going forward with the NFL? Because we got 5 more weeks now before the playoffs.
Yeah. Not really.
Yeah.
I think all the usual suspects will be there when the smoke clears. You know. Yeah. It's gonna be interesting to see what happens with the Commanders and the Giants. See who's gonna come out of that tussle. See if one of them make the playoffs or not. Giants have had some significant injuries lately, and they've kind of falling backwards and came within a couple of yards of a field goal try when they pulling it out yesterday.
Yeah.
And they had a shot at that, but I don't know.
Yeah, given both of them are unlikely to catch Philly for the division.
Right.
It looks like Washington and the Giants and Seattle, 2 of those 3 teams will get the last 2 wild card spots. So that's going to be interesting. I think Seattle's 7-5, Giants 7-4-1, Washington 7-5-1. And so they're going to battle for. Now, of course, if Seattle catches Frisco, who they're a game behind, then that would throw Frisco into that mix. But but right now, it looks like 2 of those 3, based on the present configuration, that's what the wild card looks like. So it's one of the things I did want to just say when I launched the whole thing about what did you see? I think I didn't write it down, but the top 4 seeds, of course, are the division winners in order of record. And then the next 3 wild cards. In the NFC, we're looking at Philadelphia, 11-1, Minnesota, 10-2, San Francisco, 8-4, Tampa Bay, 5-6. They're actually going to get a home game. And then it's, I believe it's the Giants, 7-4-1. Seattle 7-5. No. I think it's the reverse. No, that's right. It's the Giants 7-4-1, Seattle 7-5, Washington 7-5-1. So that's the playoffs today. If the playoffs was today. And then in the AFC, it's Buffalo 9-3. The 2 seed is KC 9-3. Buffalo gets the tiebreaker. They beat them head up. The 3rd seed is the Ravens at 8-4, and they have the tiebreaker right now over Cincinnati because they beat them head up. And then Tennessee is the 4th seed at 7-5. And then the next 3 teams, I believe, are Miami, Cincinnati, and the Jets. With 6-6 Chargers and 6-6 Patriots looking in. And it kind of opens it up. It's going to be tough, but you think of the 5-7 Raiders who won 3 in a row, and the Browns with Deshaun. I know he didn't play well yesterday, but he was rusty.
You would expect them to.
I didn't expect much.
I mean, come on, they won the game.
That's what I thought. I thought he'd play an average game, got some reps, and get ready to go. So they got to be looking at this like, well, we're 2 games behind the Jets, but the problem for the Browns, they lost head up to the Jets. That was the game they blew the game. So anyway, enough of that. I just want to throw that out.
The Jet game was a sad thing because the guy.
Oh, with the Vikings yesterday.
Yeah, dumped the ball in the end zone. The pass he would normally catch. You would think, but they had an opportunity to win that game.
Yeah, they kicked 5 field goals yesterday. They kept getting down there, kept getting down there.
Yeah, I think I won for 7 or something like that in the red zone. Some horrible time. Yeah. And I'm glad you mentioned the Seahawks too. Gino.
Big time. 367 and 3 touchdowns.
My goodness, that's right. Come from behind.
Yeah.
Playing well. He's beating everybody in ratings.
And he was dropping some dimes, man.
Oh, man, beautiful throws.
And that touchdown pass was.
Oh, man, Dan? Yes, sir.
Because Jalen Ramsey was all over. What was that, Metcalf?
Metcalf, he made a hell of a catch. That was perfect.
He threaded that needle.
He did. Gino's playing his butt off. I heard a guy talk about it today saying somebody's going to pay him, $20, $30 million next year.
It have to.
That's right.
He's playing lights out.
Gracious, he is.
Playing lights out. He's comfortable. He's finally got a team. He's got a chance. He's healthy.
Right.
And everything just laid right for him. He was already on the team for 2 or 3 years.
And he could play.
and he could play, and it all worked out,
Yeah.
And now he doesn't have to look over his shoulder.
Exactly.
He's the man, and he's playing like it too. And he can throw that ball, man. He can throw that ball.
He can. He certainly can do that. And then get back to the Eagle game. They talk about how the Eagles shut down the running game.
Henry.
Yeah, Henry, he only had 11 carries.
Right.
I don't understand that. I don't understand that. But that's where they chose to play the game anyway.
Well, unless they're trying to preserve him for the playoffs, but at some point they might end up messing. Well, they're in the division. They ain't gonna blow the division. So.
Right. They'll make the playoffs. Maybe they are saving them here. It's possible.
Yeah, because the closest team to them is Indianapolis at 4-7-1. So that's over.
Right.
That's over. So.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So.
Absolutely.
So let's turn our attention. Let's turn our attention to the NBA real briefly. I think the story right now, there are a number of early season stories, but the story right now is the Lakers.
How about that? That's something. Nobody's picking on the Lakers anymore.
Yeah, they won 8 of their last 10. And Anthony Davis is playing all world, man. I mean, he went for 55 yesterday against Washington.
Yeah, everybody expects him to play all the time.
Yeah, I mean, and Russell Westbrook is playing well, particularly good floor game. LeBron is being LeBron.
That's right.
And I think give Darvin Ham a lot lot man. They started 2-10. They looked worse than last year, and he just said, "Hey, we gonna." And I remember he said, "We gonna get this together."
Right.
And they are playing some ball. And I think what's also happening, they're starting to get their confidence back. Because I'm pretty sure privately it's going like, man, well, yes, last year we had 33 and 49 and all these injuries, and now we start 2-10, and
I know what's going on.
and LeBron's getting older, and Westbrook's getting older, and he's on the get rid of him block. And the way they were treating him, and now
I know.
they are balling.
They are balling. I hope they keep it to stay healthy. That's all they got to stay healthy.
They're balling now.
They really are. And
they played a heck of a game. That game against Milwaukee, I saw most of the last quarter. Man, that was a hell of a quarter with Giannis and AD and LeBron and Drew Holiday. I mean, it was like back and forth, and then I think it was 130. What was the final? 133, 129, or something like that.
Something like that, yeah. They just got a lot of points.
Yeah, AD went for 44, I believe it was, and Giannis went for 40, and I mean they were balling. I mean it was just old-fashioned back and forth. Giannis was blocking folks shots at the rim, so it was good to see, man. That's the kind of ball you like to see.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And one other thing in the pet peeve department, I don't know statistically over the whole 10 games, but I know in a handful of games I've kind of sporadically looked at the box score. The Lakers seem to be shooting fewer threes than they were, no matter what their percentage. Yeah, it makes sense. You shoot 45 threes and make 8. That's crazy.
It is.
So anyway, but that's my 2 cents with the NBA.
Yeah.
You got anything?
No, and tell you about the Nets. The Nets are quietly getting it together too.
They are.
They're getting healthy, man.
But they got to get Simmons back. He's missed the last 3 games.
Yeah, they get him back, and TJ Warren gets into shape to play.
Yeah.
They're gonna be they got quite a team.
Yeah, because Ben started playing well.
He did.
He started having 3 or 4 games. We had some really good line. Because that's what you want out of him. You want that 12.8 board, 8 assists, 3 steal, 2 block, floor game from him.
There you go. That's all they need from him.
That's all they need from him.
That's right.
So
That's right.
It's shaping up. I think, once we get past football and teams start getting, it's going to be a really interesting season going forward. Because,
I think so.
And it's going to be close. Celtics are playing well.
Oh, they are. Yeah,
Suns are playing well. Golden State's starting to play well after that slow start.
Yeah.
And then you got some of the upstarts that they're not doing bad, but then like Memphis is not doing as well as it did last year. But they need to get Desmond Bain back, and then Minnesota's been a disappointment. After they picked up Gobert, they're under, and now they've lost Towns for a while.
Right, Towns is hurt, yeah.
So that's how it works, though, man. That's how it always works.
That's true.
So,
that is true. And every time I see the Miami Heat play, I always ask myself, what the world was Philadelphia think about to let Jimmy Butler get away?
I know. And everything they've done since then.
Right.
You wouldn't have had to bring in Hard. Nothing against him personally, but it's like I'm with you.
Goodness gracious, that was insane.
The way he balls. Well, they say this is the problem with this world we live in. They said that he was just too hard nosed and he, that kind of rubbed the other players the wrong way, and it's like, goodness gracious.
It sounded like they should have got rid of the other players.
Right, exactly. Got rid of the wrong folk, man.
Right. Oh boy, what you gonna do?
Yeah, he's a heck of a player.
He is.
You catch any of the World Cup?
I did. I saw the U.S. lose. I watched some of that game.
Against the Netherlands?
Yeah. And I watched, who's it? Oh, yes. I watched Brazil get beat by Cameroon.
Yeah.
That was quite a game. I enjoyed that.
We're always rooting for the teams from the continent.
Right.
But the only thing I would say with Cameroon, I didn't see the game. Did Brazil put his frontline players out there?
Oh yeah.
Because they did. Oh, I didn't know that. Because they had it already. The knockout round was already secured for them. I just wondered about it. Okay, cool.
Yeah. I think as far as I know, who didn't play. I'm not that up on soccer. I must claim to be. And do no names and guys like that. But I didn't hear anybody say anything about them not playing. Their frontline guys.
And it's not that I heard it. It's just that I'm well aware that a lot of times when you already have clinched the knockout round, sometimes you rest players. That's all. That's sort of they said it.
Right. And to be fair, it looked like Brazil had a little bit of an off game, but they had a lot of opportunity to score goals. Mm-hmm. When you normally think they would, but the goalie in Cameroon and the other defenders just played an outstanding game. They were on the top of their game. Mm-hmm. And they did a lot of shots that they blocked up. And any other day, Brazil might have scored 5 or 6 goals. They had those kind of opportunities.
Right.
Those guys were making some tremendous defensive plays to stop them from scoring. So it was just one of those games, man. And it was good. I don't watch a lot of soccer, but
I understand.
World Cup comes along, I do try to see some of it.
Yeah. It's exciting for what it means to so many folks around the world.
Right.
Yeah. Well, I know today Brazil in the knockout round, I think they beat they beat South Korea. I believe it was 4-1.
Okay.
And so they move on into the round of 8. And so, and they're the favorites. In many years, they are the favorites.
They usually are, right.
So
it's not unusual at all.
Yeah, it's not unusual at all. So
no. And speaking of Brazil, the Pele is really very ill.
Right.
Yeah. So some prayers out to him.
It's and it just I don't know if irony is the right word, but given we're at the World Cup, which he not only dominated, but you could almost say put on the map at the way that it grew, because he played in my history. I think he was like how old was he when he first played in the late 50s? Of course, I was barely born.
He was very young.
I think he was a teenager, maybe 16, 17.
Yeah, he's amazing.
And he came on the scene, and I think he set a record for the number of goals in the World Cup play. Right. And then, over the next, I know he was known to play in I think 4 or 5 World Cups. And they play every 4 years, so somewhere, where are we at now? So something like the late 50s into the early 70s, I think he led Brazil to 3 titles and set all kinds of records. And then towards the end of his professional career, you probably know this better than me, he went to New York Cosmos.
He popularized brought soccer in America.
Yeah, brought soccer to America.
Right.
That's right.
That's right.
And I believe they won a championship when he was here. I don't know what was the forerunner. There was the North American Soccer League. What was it called? I know they have a different name now, but when he was there. But everything and again, I'm not a soccer aficionado, so I agree. But everything I've read through the years and given what he did and when he did it, I think Pele is the greatest player of all time, period.
No, I think there's any doubt about that. I don't think anybody will argue that.
I know there are people that say Messi now, and what's the guy from Portugal? Ronaldo, is that? Yeah, Ronaldo. Yeah. I know people say that, but
nah, Pele was the man, no question.
So but wish him well. Say a prayer for him.
Absolutely.
Hope that maybe he will be with us a little longer. So I'm gonna go to Major League Baseball. That's
right.
We're now in the hot stove winter league period, and you had indicated earlier to me that you heard that Justin Verlander, the former Astro, signed with the Mets.
Right.
Yeah. Do you know the terms? I can only guess, but
I've forgotten what it was. Yeah.
Well, given that he's 40, he'll be 41 next season. It's probably a 2 or 3 year contract. And I'm only going by Max Scherzer. Didn't Scherzer sign with the Mets a 2-year a couple of years ago, about 40-something million per? So I'm pretty sure Verlander probably got something similar.
It's in that ballpark, I'm sure.
Yeah.
I'm sure.
Yeah. And he's coming off his third Cy Young Award, so he would have some kind of market.
Absolutely.
It's going to be interesting.
Absolutely.
And then I guess he's going to replace Jacob DeGrom that was signed by, who did he sign, Texas? Was it Texas?
Texas, a crazy contract he got.
What was it, 5-year, 185?
Verlander signed for 2 years for 86 million.
43 a year.
43 million a year.
Okay.
Yeah, Verlander did. This guy signed this outrageous contract, I think. Guys this is modern baseball, so all these guys
right.
5-inning pitches now.
Well, that's the thing with the Grimes contract for me is that I'm gonna say anecdotally because I'm not looking anything up, but given the amount of time he spent on the injured list, and then you throw in the the COVID year where they only played 60 regular season games. So most starters got anywhere from 8 to 10, 11 starts if they were in the regular rotation. He probably has not pitched more than 500 innings the last 5 seasons total.
Right.
And I think I'm in that ballpark. I'll say plus or minus 100 going in his favor. That's a lot of money, man, for a guy that don't pitch a lot of innings.
I know.
That is just.
I think so.
But this is what they're paying today, man.
That's true.
I mean, go ahead.
No, go ahead. I was going to change subject.
No, go ahead. That's fine.
I was going to say, speaking of baseball, McGriff, Hall of Fame. Finally got into the Hall of Fame. And he's the only one off that ballot that got in. And I see that Albert Bell only got like 4 votes.
Yeah, didn't even get that, actually. Yeah. Because they don't announce.
They said fewer than 4 votes. Yeah, which is absurd.
Well, the ones who got the fewer than 4 votes were the 3 associated with, or rumored to, or alleged to, had some kind of PED use or association. Barry Bonds, Roger Clemens, Rafael Palmeiro, even though Palmeiro actually tested positive, though he's always maintained his innocence. And I guess how he's maintained, he said he never knowingly took it after the test came back. And then you have Bale, who they just didn't like Bale.
They didn't like Bale. That's all. They didn't like Bale.
So the other 4, including Schilling, who's had well publicized comments and controversy that have been negative, and some even have had a racial tint to it. He got 7 votes.
I know. And Dale Murphy got 6, Mattingly 8.
But we talked off the air, and I posted on my Hall of Fame Injustice website. I spoke to that. I thought that if the so-called, I'm gonna call it, boycott against people like Bonds and Clemens continued, and if you included, and I actually included Schilling in there, and I knew Bell wasn't well liked. Of the other three, McGriff, Manning, and Murphy, I thought that as much as I know a lot of them wanted to probably put Mattingly in or Murphy, and me and you talked about that. I thought of the three, the no-brainer was McGriff. And that's exactly what happened. And so, and the fact that he got unanimous, nothing gets him getting unanimous, but it shows you the problem with the voting.
Exactly.
Because, I know why they're not voting for Bonds and Clemens, but something's wrong, man. Something's wrong with this, that you can do that, skip Bale, and then give Mattingly and Murphy that amount of support.
Exactly.
Exactly.
So it's not certainly not based on merit.
No, because Bale had one of the great 10, 12-year careers in the annals of baseball.
Exactly.
And I've heard people laud Mattingly, who had a hell of a career, about his relatively short career, and then he got hurt, but also did Bale. Bale's career was injured because of an injury.
That's right.
But he doesn't get the same what they call grace as Mattingly gets.
Of course not. They didn't like him. That he was surly and he didn't relate to the press and all that kind of crap. And nothing to do with his playing ability. Nothing.
But when you look at all the numbers, man, I mean, Bale is a no-brainer.
Exactly.
So they're gonna have to do something with this thing, man. But I'm happy for McGriff.
Oh, absolutely. He should have been in about a regular baseball.
Absolutely.
They were so full of crap,
And if they weren't hypocritical, just think about this for a moment. Now, the Veterans Committee, or with the contemporary baseball area is their call, but typically it's Veterans Committee.
Right.
They clearly acknowledged his distinction from the so-called steroid or PED era guys.
Right.
Now, but the baseball writers never did it. And that was always a problem. It's like you can't have it both ways. You cannot vote for Bonds or Sosa or McGuire or any of those guys.
Right.
But then say that, because McGriff's numbers pale in comparison because he didn't use PADs, doesn't make sense.
I know. It doesn't.
So it just shows you how these writers over the years were, left wanting, man, because they were there cheerleading.
Absolutely.
They were there. You're getting some coming after the fact now, but during the time, they were all cheerleading.
That's right.
They were selling newspapers and
that's right.
And
Paul
making
Bunyan.
money, man. Everybody. All right, Paul Bunyan. That's right.
Bunyan, yeah.
Paul Bunyan McGuire.
That's right. Couldn't do anything wrong.
Yeah. And all the narratives, I'll never forget. I know we talked about this. People think we pick it, but man, people forget these things, and they have to be remembered in the context of how these narratives are conveyed and promoted. When McGuire was at the height of his prowess, even after they saw that Andostene Dion, or whatever they call that steroid-related thing, that they saw by his locker doing the 98 home run chase.
Right.
But everybody just kind of ignored it.
Right.
And I'll never forget, they interviewed Jason Giambi, who was playing with the A's at the time. He hadn't gotten to New York. And he, he's putting up MVP numbers, and he won an MVP once with the A's.
Right.
And they tell you, McGuire, he's such a great this, and he's such a great that. And I'll never forget this. This is one of my pet peeves, because I know what it means. He plays the game the right way. Oh, man.
Yeah, he juices.
Right.
He plays the game the right way. He gets it.
That's right.
I'm like, what?
Right. Yeah. What's the right way?
Well, you know what it is, but it's just that type of holier than thou and all that.
Exactly.
And then doing that chase, if you recall, he had Roger Maris. This is who was it? Was it his son, wife, his family there? And they were celebrating this.
Right.
Oh man. So anyway, it just
It never
It never ends, man. So I thought about that. But it's back to those writers who promote that type of narrative and the inconsistency and this, that, and the other. But then they don't want to turn around and acknowledge a McGriff, who by all indications never did anything.
Exactly. Hit 493 home runs.
Right, hit 4 and should have given him credit, because if they never had to strike in '94. Where they missed the last what 94? How many games they missed in '94? The last, what was it? I can't remember. How many games they played in '94?
I don't remember.
I can't remember. It was like, didn't they play like 90 games or 100 games? They
It's a significant amount.
yeah, they missed a significant amount of games. I can't remember exactly what it was. Well, he would have had 7, and then they started the '95 season by missing the first 18 games that was strike related.
That's right.
By the time they got it together late, early in the '95 season calendar year, then went to spring training, and then they missed the schedule was 144 games that year, not 162. So think about, conservatively, McGriff missed, I'll say, 70 games.
Right.
At a time where he's in his prime. You don't think he hit 7 more home runs?
I know, absolutely.
So, yeah, I just think, and he was one of the leading candidates to win the MVP in '94 also. And of course, there was no MVP. I don't want to get that wrong. Did they? No, they did name an MVP. I'm going to take that back. I think they did, but I can't remember who it was.
Right.
Yeah. So anyway.
We all signing career though. It's good ball player.
Yeah, I'm happy for him.
It should have been on his merits in the normal way, really. No question.
Good ball player, man.
Yeah.
So,
like you said, you wrote a whole book about all these good ball players that get the short end of the stick when it comes to their careers, as opposed to some of the lighter complexion brethren.
yeah, well, in the book, I focused primarily on the guys who played, from a little bit after Jackie started, like Minnie Minoso and those guys up until. And the guy that retired the latest of the 13 I profiled was Parker, and he retired in '91. That said, I do mention Fred McGriff in the book about someone that's been overlooked, and I was fearful that he would become this generation's Dick Allen and those guys. So I'm happy.
I'm happy for him.
Yeah. And last day at that ballot, man, though, me and you talked about this. We felt that Bonds and Clemens weren't going to get a lot of support, because when you saw that Sosa and McGuire were left off the ballot, so that was already a window into.
That's true.
So, and then my last pet peeve on this is Lou Whitaker was not on that ballot.
Oh man!
And yet Alan Trammell and Jack Morris are in the Hall of Fame from that 2018 induction.
Exactly.
Same time, same team. Neither one of those players were better than Lou Whitaker.
No.
And in some circles, you could argue Whitaker was as good or better than they were. And he wasn't even on that 2018 ballot, let alone getting in with them.
No, and the list is long and long and long and long of black ball players who get treated like that.
Get treated like that.
Yeah, all the time.
And then the last irony, man, is if you looked at 2 of the Hall of Famers that were on the committee that voted yesterday, were Jack Morris and Alan Trammell. Now, they probably had nothing to do with Whitaker not being on the ballot, but still. Think of that.
Exactly.
Think of that. They get the grace, and then they get the grace to get somebody else in there. So yeah, man, they need to blow that thing up. So
I'm telling you, it's a joke. It's a joke. It really is a joke.
Yeah. One last baseball thing, Trey Turner.
Yeah, Trey Turner signed with Philadelphia.
Yeah.
Long contract.
Yeah, it was 10, 11 years, $300 million.
Yeah. So
yeah, he's a good ball player.
I wish I could play. That's all I can say.
Yeah, well, when the Dodgers said they were going to re-sign him, I figured it was about money, because he's a good player and he's in his prime.
Yes, 11 years, $300 million.
Wow.
Yes, sir.
That's a lot of money, man.
That is.
All right, man. You got anything else you want to add? Maybe non-sports related?
Tomorrow's a big day in Georgia. The runoff election between Warnock and what's that guy's name?
Yeah, what's that?
Herschel Walker. My God, I still can't believe that. It still blows my mind, but why not? Yeah. We had Donald Trump. Why can't we have Herschel Walker?
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's that's significant on the radar. Hopefully that'll go the way most sane people want it to go.
Yeah.
And we'll see what happens. You have an idea this time tomorrow. Well, really a little later on in the evening part of tomorrow night, we'll have an idea what's going to happen with that.
Yeah, folks who say, people, you get political or you don't get political. My whole thing is, no, it's not necessarily politics, though we wouldn't run from it. The issue is sanity, decency, and a candidate that's going to hopefully serve the greater good of the interests of everyday people, not the interests of corporate entities and folks who are just trying to, reduce wages, take away health care, all these things, and that,
all the things the Republican Party stands
for. And that's what gets lost in all this. So
exactly.
Yeah, so it'd be good to keep an eye on that.
That's true.
I was going to make a brief mention about the negligence of the media, which is often referred to as the fourth estate, or the fourth branch of government. I guess when it, and even though it's not a branch of government, but and just continue to drop the ball, man. This thing with Trump talking about suspending or getting rid of the Constitution because of fraudulent elections or things he's made up. And they don't deal with this in a way that they really should deal with this. I'm talking about holistically now. I mean, that should be, those comments should be persona non grata in every major newspaper, editorial, everywhere in this country. And it's not.
Ad nauseum,
yeah. So I just that's.
I know. Kyrie gets more vilification.
There you go.
More vilification than Donald Trump.
There you go. I mean, think about it.
I know.
That's 24/7. He needs to this. He needs to that. He needs to this. He needs to that. He needs to pay his penance, and he needs to absolutely. And then something that's creating serious harm to a whole bunch of people.
Exactly.
And so that's why I said that, and the whole fourth estate and the independence of it has always been a fallacy anyway. But
it's even more of a joke now with the corporate.
Right, that's what I was getting ready to say. It's even worse now. I mean, I think you could have always found, of course, they're going to romanticize it when it fits. But, occasionally you have whether it's an editorial or a newspaper pushing something that needs to be pushed or forwarding or promoting, whether it was civil rights or voting rights or anything, trying to be that fourth rail to some kind of decency and why this should happen. And now, man, very little independence, very little objectivity.
That's right.
Very little, if any, advocacy of anything that's decent. And so, anyway, that's my rant relative to that.
You're right. It's complete corporate control. That's what it is. That's what it is. Yeah.
All right, man. But before we end this, you got anything you want to add?
No. I'm just looking forward to the next two. Oh, one more thing. Yeah, Deion. I can't get off without saying something about Deion Sanders. Okay. I'm happy for him, and I'm sad for HBCUs and Jackson State in particular in some ways, but Deion's done a wonderful job. He's an excellent coach, obviously. People are talking about his personality and his ability to draw talent to him, but obviously he's a hell of a coach too. And he turned that program around. They were undefeated this year. Yeah. And so I'm really looking forward to see what he does in Colorado. I think he'll be extremely successful. He's been successful everywhere else he's gone and everything he's done so far. And I don't think that trend's going to end. But I just hope it doesn't have a negative effect on Jackson State in particular. And I don't know, what kind of infrastructure is left there or what kind of support they're going to continue to get without his large personality being present. I hope that's not the case. I hope people will continue to support the HBCUs in general, the way that Deion showed you that if you give them resources, they can be as good as anybody. And so happy for him, and hope he does well, and I expect him to do so. I also feel kind of sad that he needs to stay at Jackson State a little bit longer at least.
Yeah, I second and echo your sentiments. I think well said. It's bittersweet in some ways because obviously we're glad that Deion's getting not only an opportunity for himself but for black coaches, and not very many black coaches. I think you mentioned to me off air, I think it's down to 6 or 7 of the 130 plus Division I schools that play college football.
Exactly.
So I mean,
so maybe that's another door he can kick down.
Yeah,
who knows?
right. And because of his personality and his celebrity and his Hall of Fame career, he was able to bring a lot of illumination to Jackson State and HBCUs. And I think, to your point, hopefully he set some type of framework or template that others can pick up, even though it may be sans him personally or his personality or his celebrity. But hopefully many of the things that he did do, hopefully folks can now move that forward. And so that's what I'm hoping for.
Oh, absolutely.
And you got to start from scratch. But I welcome or applaud what he did at Jackson State.
Absolutely.
And I just hope he does well at Colorado, and we'll see what happens to Jackson State and some of the HBCUs. Go from there. All right, brother. Well, that was a good closing comment, good closing statement. And so I guess we're going to do this again in a week or so.
Okay.
As NFL starts to wind down and we get closer to the Final Four of the college football season. And then we'll see what happens. The World Cup will get closer and closer to crowning a champ. So we'll have plenty to talk about.
Absolutely.
And then we'll know what happened in Georgia.
Yeah.
And so we'll see what happens. So man, go on and take care of that part of the country as you usually do. I know it's in good shape.
I'll do my best.
I know you will. And so we'll do this again in a week or two. So take care of yourself, brother.
All right, do the same, Joe.
I will.
Okay, now.
Later.